Hello, writers. Welcome to this week's Writer's Toolshed, the first week of the semester. Let's learn some 5 new words. Week 1, example story. The path in front of Toby glowed red and orange. Its terrible heat billowed up in front of his face, and he shielded his eyes. He would have to cross the burning embers to get to safety. Toby looked left and right, determined to find some way to cross the burning section of the path. He saw a tree with 2 long, straight branches. Cutting them off with his knife, he carved 2 footholds 6 inches off the ground and crimped some leather around the tops to lean on. He tried stepping on the stilts. They held his weight. Toby wobbled step by step through the flames to the other side. He literally walked through fire that day. Okay, let's look at these words more closely. The first one is terrible. It's an adjective meaning extreme, intense, to the point of causing fear. You might have heard of terrible, like, oh, that food was terrible today, or like, oh, that movie was terrible. It was so bad. That's a really modern way of using the word terrible, but it's actually a lot older than that. And it comes from the word terror, which is extreme fear. This guy is feeling terror. Oh my gosh, I'm so scared. I think I'm going to die. And so terrible, the original meaning was something that causes that kind of terror, that kind of fear. Next one is ember, a noun, a glowing hot piece of wood or coal that has been in a fire. You can see the embers here that have been burning. You probably know the word spark, where sparks are the small burning dots, burning pieces that kind of shoot up from a fire, or sparks could be what happen when you first try to start a fire. But embers are kind of the opposite, because embers are what is there more towards the end when the fire is burning low. And embers are much bigger than sparks. They are usually the size of a quarter or bigger. Determined, adjective, having made up your mind, not going to give up. This guy is determined to get to the top of this mountain. Look at him walking with his hands in his big steps. Determined versus stubborn. I'm sure you know what stubborn means, where you're going to dig your heels in. You're not going to change your mind. Argue against me all you want, but you can't convince me. And stubborn and determined could be very similar, but stubborn is usually thought of as something negative, but determined is thought of as something positive. If you're determined, you're not going to change your mind. You're going to dig your heels in and you're going to do it because it's a good thing to do. But stubborn, it might not be such a good thing to do. Crimp. Crimp. To squeeze into small folds or waves. This is a crimped wire mesh here. So you can see each of these wires have this zigzag pattern, and that is where they have been crimped or folded into the waves. You also think about wires being crimped in electric circuits, because to like take the wire, you don't want the frayed end of the wire, so they'll fold it with this really tight fold at the end and squeeze it together to be able to wrap it and make it safe. Crimp versus crumple. Maybe you've heard like, oh, don't crumple that piece of paper, that's important. And so crumple means making these folds also, but crumple has more random folds that are more messy, and they're when you're trying to throw something away, usually. You're just squeezing it into a ball. But crimp is very even, very intentional, very tight folds. Last one is stilts, a noun, long poles with footrests to let someone walk above the ground. These guys are on these long, long stilts because they're practicing for a carnival. They're going to be in costumes later on for the carnival to walk around in a parade. And so you can see the footrest part and you can see the poles, and a lot of stilts also have like go up to the shoulder to have your arms have something to hold on to too. Maybe you've tried walking on stilts before. Stilts versus crutches. Crutches are like, of course, these pieces of wood or pieces of metal, but crutches are something that you lean on because you're hurt. And stilts are something that you walk on that makes you tall. Okay, that's all for today, friends. Go try your writer's tool shed exercise, and I hope you can write something really beautiful today.